Hey guys, welcome to JReviews. I'm Iceman and the game covered today is Resistance Fall of Man for the Sony PlayStation 3. Resistance Fall of Man, which from here on I'll just call Resistance, was released in 2006 by Insomniac Games and was one of the initial first-person shooters for the console. The story of Resistance begins in the 1930s, where reports of biological experiments begin leaking out of Russia, which quickly escalates to that of whole villages destroyed overnight, and cities. 10 years later, the Chimera launch an invasion of Europe, which quickly falls within weeks. All but England, which by 1950 is itself then invaded, and despite preparing for the incoming attack, fall within months, with only a few scattered military bases remaining. On July 11, 1951, the United States launches an assault on the east coast of England in an attempt to fight back the Chimeran forces. It is from the second wave of that assault that a soldier by the name of Nathan Hale was a part of, and it is that soldier that you play as in this game and in the sequel. So obviously this makes Resistance an alternate history style game, where world history diverges from our timeline after a point where there was a big change, much like with the Red Alert RTS games, Fallout, and Shadowrun. The narrative to the game is told via a combination of videos and in-game cutscenes. The feel of this game is fairly traditional first-person shooter style stuff. You have your usual run-and-gun style action, selection of weapons and so on, but after a certain point in the game you gain access to regenerative health, which is very reminiscent of the Halo series in that regard. Beyond that though, there is very little in common between the two games. One aspect that I really enjoyed was the mixture of old 1950s style technology and weaponry with advanced alien style stuff. This creates a very interesting scenario of going up against alien forces with vastly inferior weaponry and seeing how that plays out, until you get hands on it, of course. Graphics at the time were considered to be excellent for this game, and even today look pretty good. Nothing I would call spectacular or anything though, but it's still pretty good. Music in the game generally goes for a militaristic action style feel, though this does vary per level as some go for more of a horror style of keeping you on edge. There was nothing that was really memorable, but at the same time there was nothing that was bad at any point. Just all good stuff, just not great. On gameplay, as mentioned, it features pretty atypical gun combat. You have your machine guns, grenades, sniper rifles, etc. But then you have the alien weapons, which mostly go for the laser weapon style approach. One of the first alien weapons you come across is the Bullseye, which shoots a steady stream of laser style rounds, and a secondary fire of a homing tag, which then causes any further standard shots to hone in on the enemy tagged, which is very handy. My favourite of the alien weaponry is the Alga rifle, which features shots that go through walls and can be extremely handy in taking out targets from behind cover. Despite the better damage of the alien weaponry, I still prefer the human weapons like the carbine rifle due to its accuracy and speed of shots, as well as the Far Eye sniper rifle, which when going into the secondary fire mode of zoom targeting, goes into a slow motion effect for a few seconds, which is extremely useful in taking out hard to reach enemies. The shotgun, which you get later on, is extremely handy as well, since it makes short work of most enemies up close. In some of the levels you travel around in vehicles, which helps mix the gameplay up a bit, and were quite fun. In addition, some have you storming areas with an army of troops, which were impressively done, and further add to the story setting of old school military tech versus advanced equipped alien forces. Enemy variety in the game is quite good. Early on you take on General Chimera assault troops, but as the game continues it starts to vary more and more, with small fast moving creatures, enemy vehicles, huge creatures which shoot massive cannons, and so much more, and you will encounter harder versions of existing enemies as well. In most levels documents can be found which add further backstory into locations you're at, in-depth details on enemies, etc. I quite enjoyed these as it gives more story into what went on before you got there. And if you find enough of them, it unlocks bonus content like concept art, videos, and heaps more. Best of all, any documents found in missions are unlocked for all future playthroughs. The same goes for the unlockables. These add a further reason to replay the game multiple times, which I really enjoyed. Added to this is unlockables based on specific actions, like killing X amount of enemies with a specific weapon or ability, etc. In regards to any negatives about the game, there isn't really much that I can think of, though I would have liked for more abilities to be present that the player could use, specific to the game. This would have helped further move the game away from a traditional first-person shooter, as beyond the health regen you don't get any abilities that weren't already present in many other first-person shooter style games, both before and since the game's release. If anything, health regen has become the norm in many games nowadays. For this game I never tried any of the multiplayer for it, so I cannot say anything on it. For the game's sequel I played a lot, as that one has some fantastic multiplayer modes, which feature player versus player battles as well as invasion modes, of having to fight off waves of enemies within a given map. Those were all fantastic and some of the best multiplayer fun that I've had on a console. On the subject of sequels, there were 3 sequel games. That started with the direct sequel, which has you playing as Nathan Hale again, and the third, which has you playing as a different character. I've not played much of the third game, so can't say very much about it, but the first sequel is excellent. So if you played this game and you really enjoy it, I'd highly recommend that one. There was also a quasi-sequel game on the Sony PSP as well, but I've not played that either, so I can't really speak on it. On the subject of bugs, I can't think of any that I experienced on the actual Sony PlayStation 3. My most recent playthrough of the game was via emulation, emulator RPC S3, and in those there were most certainly bugs, like falling out of levels, flashing textures, etc., but none of that was present in the game on the actual hardware. Overall, I really love Resistance with its setting in the 1950s of the old style weapons versus super advanced alien weaponry. The alien invasion angle of Earth, in addition, is excellent and was further improved on in the later sequels. So if any of those are things that you like, then I'd recommend this game to you. Also, if you like alternate history style stuff, then that would be another reason to play it. And with that, that is all I have to say on Resistance Fall of Man. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to see more videos in this series, be sure to hit the subscribe button and also just check out my channel for further videos. And you'll also find out what else is available. And with that, this is Iceman of JPlay signing out. Guys, have a good one.